Hi, my name is Christopher Holman, and I'm a doctoral student in historical musicology at the University of Oxford. And in today's episode of Musical Bytes, we're going to answer the age-old question, what is a fugue? Well, simply put, it's a piece of music which is based on imitation, and the foundation is a single melody, which is called the subject. Now, what makes a fugue unique is how composers organize and manipulate that melody, particularly at the start of a piece. Let's look at an example by the 18th century French composer Jacques Hotteterre. His fugue begins with a very short subject played by itself. Now, once that subject finishes, another voice begins playing that same subject again, but in a different key. And this is called the answer. And while that answer is happening, the voice that played the subject improvises another melody. And together, they sound like this. Then a third voice would enter again with the subject in the original key, and then a fourth with the answer, and so on and so forth. Now, once all the voices have played the subject, it signals the end of the first part of the piece, which is called the exposition. What happens next? Well, it depends on what the composer wants. Now, typically there's some kind of filler, which is called an episode. And these are basic progressions that even beginning keyboard students in Bach's time would have learned when they began studying. Now, often you'll hear the same short musical ideas several times in a row, and each in a different key, and this is called a sequence. Then there's usually some kind of development, where the composer sometimes moves to different keys, and in all of that, the subject weaves in and out, and often it's just played in fragments. And to end, the composer then usually returns to the original key and often concludes with a final kind of triumphant entrance of the subject. Now, that's the basic format of a typical, well-crafted 18th century fugue. But let's look at a fuguetta, or a little fugue by J.S. Bach. In this fugue, the subject is based on the chorale tune Gottes Sohn ist kommen, or God's Son has come. And like Hotteterre's fugue, Bach begins with the subject played by itself. Predictably, the answer then enters. But in this fugue, I want to draw your attention to what's happening above the answer, which is this melody. In this particular fugue, that motive actually becomes the basis of the rest of the piece, rather than the actual subject. This melody is called a counter-subject. Now, instead of boring you with a long explanation of how this fugue is structured, I'm just going to play the entire piece with the score on the screen, which I've color-coded to show exactly how this fugue is put together. And that's the fugue, or at least the basics. So the next time that you listen to a fugue in a concert, pay close attention to how the piece starts so you can memorize the subject, and then listen for the subject throughout the entire piece, especially after the exposition ends. It may appear when you least expect it. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the Boulder Bach Festival for more of these musical bites.